Hi. Hola.
Hi, hier ist Mr. Döse.
This is Michael Bradley.
Hey, I'm Memphis.
Hey.
Hola. Hello.
I'm here with soccer.com.
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 And I'm talking with my friends soccer.com.
See you soon.
Hey guys, Josh from SoccerReviewsForYou.com, bringing you a retro review plus on-feet video of the Nike Mercurial Vapor 3. Now, for those that are unfamiliar with this series, this is something that I used to do a lot more often on my channel, but essentially it's a review of a shoe that's a little bit older that you don't see as often anymore, kind of a history lesson, if you will. In this case, we're going to be featuring the Nike Mercurial Vapor 3 that originally came out in 2006, 10 years ago now, believe it or not. So kind of a history lesson, something that I know a lot of you guys have been requesting to make a comeback on the channel. Expect to see a lot more of these in the near future. And with that being said, let's get right into the review. All right, so here is a look at the shoes. This is what many people would argue is the best looking Nike Mercurial Vapor ever. And I would say that it's pretty hard to argue that fact. This shoe is absolutely fantastic looking, and it had some of the best colorways the Mercurial line has ever seen. Obviously, Nike did remake the Nike Mercurial Vapor 3 inspired Superfly 4, the two Ronaldo pack shoes. There's videos of those on my channel. I'll leave annotations on screen that had the Nike Mercurial Vapor 3 graphic on the heel. I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with what I'm talking about, but this is, like I said, one of those shoes that has a truly timeless design. The Vapor 3 originally came out in 2006, so it's 10 years old now, and really, even by today's standards, if this shoe came out exactly as it is right now today, it really wouldn't look out of place. It's super modern, super sleek, really clean lines. The smaller Nike swoosh is obviously something that Nike doesn't really do anymore on their soccer line, but it just looks so good, especially in this particular colorway. With that said, I'd be curious to hear your opinions down below in the comment section. What is, in your opinion, the best or the best looking Nike Mercurial Vapor from 1 to 10? Because I think a lot of people would agree with me that the Vapor 3 is definitely most people's number one pick. I think it is for me at the moment. I always kind of go back and forth between the Vapor 3 and the Vapor 4, which is probably a more unpopular opinion, but I don't know. I just really like the look of the Vapor 4, but for me right now, I think the Vapor 3 is the best looking that they've done. Now, the reason why I picked these up, there's two reasons. One, I didn't really need a pair of Vapor 3s, but I really like this particular colorway. This is blue obsidian and metallic platinum. So the blue, as you guys can see, is a really, really dark color, but it's got a nice shiny finish. And because the surface is completely smooth, it almost looks like a dark blue car in terms of how the actual color of the upper reflects against the light. It looks like it's been painted, and it has this nice metallic shine to it. Depending on how the light hits it, it'll look darker, it'll look lighter, and it's just a really, really clean looking colorway. And then you, of course, have the white and that metallic platinum color at the heel, which is almost like a light silver, I guess is the best way to put it. That, again, everything just goes really, really nicely together. It's a really good looking colorway, but there were tons of good looking colorways of the Vapor 3. The other reason why I picked these up, and I picked them up on eBay for those that are wondering, it was a few months ago now, is because this is actually a salesman sample variation of this, the Mercurial Vapor 3. Now, for those that don't know what a salesman sample is, essentially if you own a soccer store or something like that, and you have a Nike account and you carry Nike products, what will basically happen is in advance of the release of a product, generally about 9 months ahead of time, sometimes even a year ahead of time, a salesman for the company, a representative of Nike, for example, will come around with a bag or a truck or organize a room. They'll have their products with them to show you what you're going to be ordering and what's going to be available within 9 months or 1 year from now. So a salesman sample is one of the products, or a sample, a pre-production variation of what's going to be coming out, like I said, in the future. It's a look in person of what you're actually going to be ordering to sell in your store. So what's kind of cool about that is you guys can see inside the shoe, on both of them they're marked. You can see it says sample, property of Nike Incorporated, not for resale. So once these things are done, once they're no longer salesman samples and the products actually come out, these kind of just make their way to all kinds of different places. I guess if you're a Nike representative, you have access to this stuff to either give away, or I'm not really sure how it gets away from Nike after they've been used for their job, but these ones got away. They ended up on eBay. I ended up picking them up, and it's kind of a cool thing. They're not different than a regular pair of Vapor 3s. I was kind of hoping that they would be, but they aren't. It's just a regular pair of soft ground Vapor 3s, as you guys can see. They did come with the original salesman sample tag, which is kind of cool though. You can see it says September 13, 2006, which I believe is when this tag was issued, and they are December 2006, I think, is when this colorway was supposed to come out. So I guess at the time it would have been about a 3-month gap from the salesman sample to the final release. I'm not sure exactly if this was one of the shoes that a salesman would have actually carried around with them. There's really no knowing with that kind of thing, but that's generally when you see a salesman sample what it is, because you won't find a box or anything like that. They're just, like I said, carried around from store to store just to show them what the shoe actually looks like. You can see there's a little bit of information here. It says the model, Mercurial Vapor 3 soft ground, the color, Obsidian metallic platinum, size 9, which is generally what samples tend to be, just because it is kind of the middle size, the most common size. So these are a size 9 US, which is kind of cool, because that is my size. It's mainly the size that I buy any shoe in, even if it is a collector's item. I just like them to fit me if I'm going to buy them. But nonetheless, that's the story behind me actually picking these up. As far as what the Vapor 3 is all about, it's the first shoe in the Mercurial Vapor lineup to introduce a Teijin synthetic upper. So that's obviously something, the same type of material that we see on today's Mercurial Vapor 10. They haven't really changed it or changed the type of synthetic it's been over the years since the Vapor 3. So 10 years from now, they're still using a Teijin synthetic on the Vapor. But obviously it has been changed in terms of just the general composition of the microfiber. This is a lot stiffer and quite honestly just not as nice as what you're going to get on a Mercurial Vapor 10. This is just a much stiffer shoe in general. I know a lot of people have fond memories of these. I did have a Vapor 3. I want to say it was around 2009, 2010. I got a pair for really, really cheap at a soccer tournament. And it's a pair that I wore a couple times and basically decided to sell them just because they didn't fit me comfortably, and I just wasn't having a good time wearing them. At the time, I did prefer the Nike Mercurial Vapor 4, and even to this day, I put on a pair of Vapor 4s and I put on a pair of Vapor 3s. The Vapor 4 just fits my foot better. This is a shoe that fits really, really snug, as the kind of general shape of the shoe would suggest, and that's kind of been the aesthetic and the appeal of the Mercurial line in general. It's always been a very tight-fitting shoe, very streamlined, close to the foot. The thickness of the upper is still very, very thin, so it does offer a more barefoot feel. Not really any extra grip though, because the upper is completely smooth. Laces run through the middle, which is really, really nice. It does have this nice little kind of extension piece to the tongue, which is technically a fold-over flap, but it's such a small fold-over flap that, I don't know, I could never get them to stay down while playing, but it is something they included. I think it's a cool little touch. If you guys have ever seen any close-up pictures of Drugbuzz shoes, he always has this little piece kind of added on to his Mercurial Vapor that he wears, which I always thought was kind of a cool customization. It doesn't do anything performance-wise, but it was always a throwback to older Mercurial models that, like I said, they never did past the Vapor 3. This was the last shoe to have this little kind of flap fold-over tongue. The 1, 2, and 3 all had this. And then, of course, you get the heel area of the Vapor 3, which is probably the one aspect that you either love or hate depending on what your experience was like with this particular shoe. It has this very interesting lining material, which is this kind of perforated yellow, almost like sticky foam, I guess is the best way to describe it. It feels nice to the touch, and you would think that it's going to offer a comfortable feel, but essentially what it does is it grabs your heel and does not let go. It's one of the tightest fitting shoes in the heel area that you can really find, period. It's to the point where the shoe is actually kind of uncomfortable, not necessarily just at first, but depending on how it fits you for the entire lifespan of the shoe. It causes a lot of blisters. It's pretty much unavoidable with this shoe. It was almost known that you would buy a Vapor 3 and get the blisters, let them heal, and then see if they fit after that. And if they didn't, it just wasn't the shoe for you. If they did feel comfortable after you got the blisters, then you, for the most part, were good to go. And the shoe is going to fit you properly and comfortably in the long run. But it's something that, like I said, really locked your heel in place. A lot of people loved it. A lot of people hated it. And it's kind of one of those things that the Vapor 3 introduced. They did kind of continue it in the form of smaller pads, kind of targeted zones on the Vapor 4. But after that, they got rid of it completely. And I think personally, anyways, the Mercurial line is better off for it. The insole is fully removable. I'll give you guys a quick look at that. You can see it does say made in Italy at the time the Mercurial line was exclusively made in Italy. I'm not sure, I can't remember how far after that continued. I think it was the Vapor 3 was the last one where every single pair was made in Italy. The Vapor 4, I think they kind of scattered the production of that particular shoe. And even to this day, they still make certain colorways and certain pairs in Italy. You'll see Indonesian-made Vapors, and you'll also see made in China Vapors. I've made a video on this in the past if you guys are interested, kind of talking about the quality differences. So I'll leave an annotation on screen, but the general consensus of the video is that the quality difference between where the shoe was actually made and the final product really was no different, at least based on what I could tell. Other than that, you have the sole plate, which is a combination of a nylon material. It's a glass nylon sole plate. So again, something that we still see from Nike in terms of materials used, not necessarily exactly the same, but something similar. And then it does have the actual wrapping of the Teijin synthetic on the bottom, which just looks really cool. It kind of continues the flow of the shoe. And then you have a stud plate on top of that. There is a carbon insert, which you guys can see with the insole removed, basically running through the midfoot area of the shoe. It's a little bit difficult to see because of the lighting situation, but I assure you it is there. You can see it's a little bit shiny. And you do have this carbon wrapped heel area, which I'm not sure how effective this little piece actually is. There's plastic underneath this and the carbon is on top. I think it's there personally just for looks. It's not something that's going to be super effective in terms of providing any kind of, I guess, hold in the heel area. Although, like I said, this shoe does have a lot of hold in the heel area. It locks your foot, but I think a lot of that actually has to do with the liner more so than this little carbon plate. Looks cool though, so can't really complain about that. And then of course, this is the soft ground layout. I still don't have a brand new condition pair of firm ground Nike Mercurial Vapor 3s, which I would love to have at some point. The soft ground ones, if you look on eBay or just online in general, are the ones that tend to be for sale just because they are a little bit less sought after. But as you guys can see, this is a soft ground layout. At the time, it was still 6 studs. That's kind of what everyone did. It's not up until fairly recently that mixed soles became a thing, I guess 2010, so not too far after this. That's when the kind of soft ground pro concept or the mixed sole generally started being a thing. So this is what it was at the time. Very, very long metal studs. They all screw in, of course. And it just gives this shoe a very aggressive look. It's such a slim profile to the upper, and then you have these very long, aggressive, almost teeth coming from the bottom of the shoe. They look dangerous, but that's pretty much it as far as just a general close-up look of the Vapor 3 here. Really like this shoe, really like this particular colorway. It's kind of the main reason why I picked them up. And with that being said, let's move on to actually a quick weigh-in so we can see how lightweight these things are. As you guys can see, I have a scale in the middle of the Vapor 3 as well as a Nike Mercurial Vapor 10 in the Soft Ground Pro variation that I thought we'd compare to see how the Vapor line has evolved from a weight standpoint. Because while the Vapor 3 was light at the time of its initial release, the Vapor 10 is actually a lot lighter. So keep in mind these are both in brand new condition and both the exact same size 9 US. So this is a very fair comparison. We'll start off with the Vapor 3, throw them on the scale, which I have to balance them because of the studs. And you can see that they weigh in at 9.15 ounces, the equivalent of 259 grams. Now keep in mind this is the soft ground variation, so the firm ground model would weigh in at around 8 ounces or so, I believe. So an extra ounce being that they are soft ground, but that's kind of to be expected. Remember those numbers though, 9.15 ounces. We'll pull these off and we'll throw on the Soft Ground Pro Nike Mercurial Vapor 10, which in hand I can already tell is a lot lighter. As you can see that they weigh in at 7.2 ounces, the equivalent of 205 grams, which in comparison is basically 2 ounces lighter, which is a pretty significant amount of weight, considering that the Vapor 3 is still a fairly light shoe, even though it's soft ground. So again, there's been a lot of changes made to the Mercurial. Yes, this still has a Teijin synthetic upper, but the actual synthetic itself is a lot different, and they've really made some huge strides as far as synthetic soccer shoes go. So again, while a lot of people may have fond memories of the Nike Mercurial Vapor 3 and wearing them, if you were going to buy a pair to wear right now, I really do feel like the Vapor 10 is a much better shoe in almost every single category, if not every single category. Again, depending on your own personal preferences. All right, so here is a look at the Vapor 3s on feet. And I'm going to be 100% honest with you guys, and this is something I mentioned earlier in the video when I had a pair back when it was more of a current model. I just don't find this shoe very comfortable. when I did have a pair that I was actually wearing, I really gave it a good shot as far as just trying to break them in and being more comfortable in them, but it just never got more comfortable. And I had a pair of Vapor 4s at the time as well that just fit me that much better. And the Vapor 4 in comparison to the Vapor 3 is a much higher volume shoe. So it would fit more people a lot more comfortably than these, which are fairly narrow and fit quite tight. And given that the material just isn't the most forgiving as far as flexibility and general softness, plus you have that super stiff heel area, it's just, like I said, kind of a really, really uncomfortable shoe at first for most people. Again, if you did have a pair back when it was more of a current model, let me know what your experience was. But like I said, for a lot of people, this just was not known as a particularly comfortable shoe, especially at first. And after some break-in, they fit some people good. They didn't fit other people all that well. It was kind of just a hit and miss type thing, but they look really, really good on feet. I think that's pretty hard to deny. In terms of fit, it's a very tight fitting shoe, as we still have from the Mercurial line. Very different just based on how synthetics have evolved and the general shape of the shoe has evolved. The newer Mercurials will fit more comfortably and I think will fit a lot more people while still maintaining a very low profile kind of tight fit around your foot. But these still fit pretty well. I don't think that by today's standards this is a bad fitting shoe by any means. Width-wise, very, very kind of slim, I guess. Not a wide fitting shoe at all, and really the amount of flexibility you get from the upper doesn't really allow them to stretch all that much either. So for the most part, the way they fit out of the box is the way they end up fitting for their entire lifespan. And as far as sizing is concerned, that really hasn't changed with the Mercurial line ever since the Vapor 1. They run true to size. I'm wearing my usual size 9 US here, and the fit and length is pretty much perfect. So if you are looking to get a pair of these on eBay or something like that, I would recommend going true to size if you want a pair that is actually going to fit you properly. All right, guys, that is it for my retro review of the Nike Mercurial Vapor 3. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to support it with a like. If you have any questions, leave them down below in the comment section, and I definitely will get an answer out to you. And for those of you guys that really enjoy the retro review series, leave any suggestions down below for shoes that you would like to see featured in the next retro review. Subscribe if you haven't already for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. You can find all my social media information linked in the description as well. And other than that, guys, hope you enjoyed today's video. And as always, thanks for watching.